Last week we learned a little bit about style sheets. We kind of learned what the role of them is in a page. Again, a style sheet is a way of writing the rules of how your page is going to be displayed, including colors, sizing, font colors, spacing, anything like that. So a cascading style sheet will define how your HTML page will look in the browser. When you're writing a style sheet page, it has its own set of rules that is actually very different from how an HTML page looks. So you'll never have any HTML code on your style sheet page. In fact, if you accidentally do put it there, it tends to break the whole thing and prevent it from working. So make sure that you're keeping the two pages separate. When we talk about creating something on a CSS, we talk about creating rules. The format for a rule is as follows. You'll name the tag you want to change, such as a body tag, or in this example, the EM tag. You'll open a curly brace. It has to be the curly brace, which is found on the top right of your keyboard next to the P button. It has to be a curly brace or it does not work. You're going to write the name of the property you want to change, such as a background or background color. You'll write a full colon. You'll write the name of the property value you want. In this case, they used yellow. And then you need the semicolon at the end, or else it doesn't work. And you close all of the instructions in with a closing curly brace. So that is the format of how to write a CSS rule. CSS is called a cascading style sheet because of how precedence is determined. When you're creating a style sheet, if you ever were to write different properties for different rules, rules towards the bottom would cascade over the ones at the top and overwrite them. It's very confusing to explain, but there's just two things to remember in the context of this class. Tags will always prefer the most specific rule containing them. So for example, something in a table that determines the font color of a table would prefer anything that's just general to the whole page. And tags will always prefer the most recent rule they see. So if you redefine a body tag at the top and bottom of your style sheet, it will use the rules from the bottom one, not the top one. And it'll override everything like that. In this class, we use something called an external style sheet. An external style sheet just means it's on a different page, such as that default.css page that we saved originally. Realistically, you can do style at the top of every HTML page or even within the HTML tags themselves. But by using external style sheets, we separate the work, which allows you to focus on one thing at a time. It's less writing because you just write it on one page and then attach it to all of your HTML pages at once. It's easier to maintain because then you only have to change that one page whenever you're changing anything. It's easier to understand because if you name these style sheets appropriately, you know exactly what's going to which page. And if that's not enough to convince you, it's because that's what we want to see when we're marking. And if you don't do what we want to see when we're marking, you're going to lose marks. So one of the most popular things you're going to be changing on a style sheet is colors. There's 3 ways to define colors. You can just name the color you want to change, such as on the default style sheet where we had the color named as light blue. You could just put red, aqua, and other colors. You could name them as red, green, blue values. These define what the pixels of the screen are going to display. You'll learn more about what pixels are in the class, but this is another way of defining colors. Third way is quite similar, but instead of this format, you use what's called hexadecimal format, which looks something like this. It's up to you which one you prefer to use. If you wanted to use one of these two to get very specific colors, you would want to use a color picker because trying to guess would take you a long time. We have a link to a color picker right here. If you just Google hex color picker, there's one right here. You could just pick the shade you want and it would give you that hex color here. There's a lot of things you can do on style sheets, way too much to talk about in one lab, again. So if you want a more complete list of things, there's an FAQ link here. But for our lab exercise, we are going to create a new page called testing.css. It's going to be very important that that's what we named it, because that's what we have it set to look for on our testing page here. If you see href testing CSS, we have to match this name exactly. So we'll go add file. Just like how you create new HTML files, it's the name dot the extension CSS. So the instructions here just go over how to create a new rule, step by step. We're going to grab it from here, body, background color, black. This will set the background color of our body, which is everything on our page, to black. We'll just copy that, place it here. And what that's done is it made our background color black, which is cool, except for our font color was default black still, which makes it unreadable. So when you're picking colors, very important that you're picking a background color and a font color that you can actually read. So don't pick yellow on white yellow or two very light colors at the same time, or else it's just impossible for the marker to read, and you'll probably lose marks for it because they can't read what you wrote. To change the font color is just color. Remember, when you're spelling these properties, they have to be spelled American. There's no U in any of the colors. If we were to grab this and overwrite it here, we'll now have a black background with pink text. That looks something like this, which is what we were expecting. So that is the basics of style sheets.